You don't have to raise your hand, but I want you to think about it. Have you ever seen a picture on social media, or an athlete, or an actress, and thought, that is what I want my body to look like? But it's a lot easier said than done. One might think obtaining an insanely strong looking physique can be obtained in a matter of months, maybe a year or two, but that is not the case. I've done my own research on this topic, I've gathered others. I've been weight training for almost about 2 years now, and I've been involved in sports for about a decade. I know, that does not make me a pro on the subject, but it does make me familiar with the fitness industry. Today I hope to educate you about the action or the physical activity it takes to obtain a very strong, fit-looking physique, the nutrition and meal planning behind it, and I'll also address performance-enhancing drugs. Now that I've briefly covered what I'll be talking about, let's get to the first point. There are competitions, Mr. Olympia, or women's figure and bikini competitions, that showcase the most strong, aesthetic-looking bodies in the world. Something that almost everyone might want and have tried to achieve. It's easier said than done. A survey done by Live Strong recently suggests that bodybuilding is one of the most grueling and demanding sports one can take on. They train for 5 to 8 years, obtaining these crazy physiques that someone would do anything but work for or try to find a shortcut. According to Healthline, the only way to grow muscle is heavy resistance, which is relative to each individual, and it's a common mistake to think that cardio can do this, meaning jumping, running, jogging. You know what cardio is. But that is not the case. Cardio is great for your heart health, cardiovascular health, but it won't grow your muscle. So ladies or gentlemen, if you want to grow your butt, the 12-3-30 thing, unfortunately that isn't going to work. These athletes weight train 1 to 3 hours a day, 5 to 7 times a week, lifting weights that can be 2 to 6, 7, 8 times their own body weight. How does one work up to that? You would think motivation is what keeps somebody in the gym. That is not the case. It's consistency. There's a quote I'd like to share with you. That is, consistency is more important than perfection. For example, I'm sure every single one of us has been super motivated to do our homework, super motivated to clean, super motivated to get fit. But as we know, motivation fades. It's the discipline within your consistency that makes change. Now that I've talked about the physical strength it takes, let's talk about the nutrition and its relations with working out. Nutrition is just as important as working out. Some might argue even more, but I'll leave that up to you. So if you want to lose fat, lose muscle, gain muscle, nutrition has its role. With that said, I'm going to be telling you what a calorie deficit is, a calorie surplus, and I'll touch on the nutrition label. More specifically, macronutrients, macros for short. Again, according to Healthline, a calorie deficit is eating less calories than you consume. I'd like to remind you, we are all burning calories right now. Every single one of you, by breathing, by living. We burn calories 24/7, even when we sleep. And it's opposite for surplus, eating more than you exercise or burn calories. It is literally impossible to lose weight without eating in a calorie deficit. And it's quite literally impossible to gain weight or muscle without being in a surplus. So if you or a friend say, I want to lose weight, that's fine. Just make sure that's what you want and it aligns with your goals. How do you know if you're a surplus? How do you know if you're in a deficit? Unfortunately, I do not have an easy answer for you. It's very common for athletes to buy food scales and apps to track every single thing they consume. It's pretty impractical and it can become very toxic in an obsession, but it might be necessary depending on the athlete. There's some recent interviews with celebrity Gal Gadot or famous bodybuilders, The Rock, Chris Bumstead, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they refer to food tracking as kind of second nature, an autopilot sort of thing. Could you imagine going to your kitchen, wanting a little midnight snack, you gotta bring out the food scale first, and then you gotta turn on the light, look at the nutrition label, and then your wife is like, I thought you were on a diet. It's a whole thing. Now that I've talked about the physical and mental strength about food and working out, let's address performance-enhancing drugs. Building muscle and working out is a very long and hard process, but some take performance-enhancing drugs, aka steroids, to speed up that process. losing fat quicker, gaining muscle mass faster, which can be very toxic for someone who doesn't know if an athlete is taking it. It creates a false image or goal for themselves. A study was admitted on users and non-users of steroids. It was found out that more than 50% of male bodybuilders use steroids, and about 10% of women. And upwards of 10% of all famous athletes use steroids, which can be pretty discouraging to someone who thinks that they got that naturally. Could you imagine you're trying to get fit, but the person next to you gained all this muscle in 2 months, and you look the same? A recent study showed that about 73% of people who set fitness resolutions for themselves give up before their goals are met. Probably because they're watching all these famous athletes, bodybuilders, gaining all this muscle, making all this progress so fast, when they see nothing in themselves. So, I'd like to remind you, the process of building muscle, being just generally fit, it's very hard. It's very long. It's a lifestyle change. It truly is the long haul. It relies on your consistency with your work. It relies on what you put in your body, including weekends. And not being discouraged. If you look at someone else and you want to be them, you have no clue what they did to get there. Unnaturally, unhealthily, you just don't know. So you have to be focusing on yourself. Again, like I said, it truly is the long haul. So if you want to look like The Rock, or if you want to look like a Wonder Woman, you can do it. It just might take a little more work than you anticipate.